Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting, Monday, January 27th, 2014. First item on the agenda is the signing of the warrant.
Motion, Bill.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Next is approval of the January 6th, 2014 minutes.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. Next, we have citizen participation, and I wanted to see if there was anybody here that doesn't have an item on the agenda. I know of one group I'd like to call out. I see a lot of Boy Scouts here. Is there a pack leader or somebody? Oh, Ken, good to see you again. Yeah, if you could just introduce the group that you have.
Okay, we got a bunch of guys here that are working on their communications and badge and citizenship in the community. Guys, why don't you start with Brandon? You guys just stand up and introduce yourselves.
Can you, sorry, can you use this?
And what's your last name, Brandon? I'm sorry?
He.
Okay.
I'm Derek Jordan.
Welcome.
Manuel Zimmerman.
Welcome.
I'm Matthew Lonigan.
Welcome.
I'm Sam Rosa.
I'm Joshua Arns.
Hi, Joshua.
Brandon Dulac. Kevin Spiegelman. Joseph Thomas.
And of course, that's Ken Rosa with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, young men, and hopefully there's something you get from this evening that helps you understand a little bit more about how government works, or at least how citizens participate, and the types of things we deal with. Is there anybody else who's here to talk about an item that's not scheduled on the agenda, would like to speak? Okay, not seeing anyone. We'll go to the first item on the agenda is public hearings. We have for 99 West Street doing business as 99 Restaurant, request for change of manager. Is there anybody here from there? Why don't you step up to the first two seats? We'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure.
I'll let you introduce yourself. And
Sure. My name is James Felder. I'm the new general manager over at the Milford 99 restaurant.
okay. And you're looking simply to change manager from John Wright to yourself?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And just for the benefit of everybody at home, the board members have, as would be typical, go to the various department heads to see if there's any concerns or any issues related to the change. There's no issues identified from the building commissioner, town planner. Town collector indicates taxes are up to date. Town treasurer, no outstanding liens. Police chief and fire chief also have no objections, issues, or concerns. Maybe you just, in the introduction of yourself, your background in working with 99 or other similar establishments?
Yeah, I've been with the 99 restaurant since February 2007.
Okay.
And just got promoted into the general manager position. So, and then in restaurant management for probably a total of 10 years.
Okay. Congratulations on your promotion. I'll go to the members of the board to see if they have any questions. Dean?
No, just good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
Brian?
No questions. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll accept a motion.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
All right, I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Lots of luck at the 99.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next, we have Melissa Thomas, Community Development Office. The final of a lot of meetings bringing together this effort for Community Development Block Grant submission.
Yes, tonight is the third and final meeting for the Community Development Strategy and our application for the FY14 Community Development Block Grant. The purpose of those meetings that we previously held on December 16 and on January 6 were to begin the discussions on the CDS. We have received quite a few recommendations and updates to be made to the CDS. We have incorporated all the changes as of today. And the two previous meetings were held to discuss the direction that the town should take in applying for the FY14 application. From those meetings, it's my recommendation that the town seek funds for the Water Street Infrastructure Improvement Project and to continue with our housing rehabilitation program. This being the final meeting on the CDS, I'm requesting that your board adopt to the new CDS and to authorize the CDO office to continue its efforts on the Water Street Infrastructure Program and the housing rehabilitation.
Okay. I'll go to the members of the board. Dino?
Melissa, as far as Water Street, that would be the the entire Water Street or just the lower part of it?
It would be from the intersection on Route 140 through the intersection of Lee Street.
Okay.
That is where the target area ends.
And as far as the cost, what would be the, if we were able to obtain this grant, what would be the total amount?
The total grant amount that we are looking to apply will be over $700,000.
Okay. And this will be awarded when, you think?
We are hoping June or July of 2014. Those are normally the timeframes when the applications are reviewed and the awards are made. Every year it does differ by a few months, depending on the governor and what the
Sure.
situation
And we'll
is.
still use our consultant, right?
Correct, the same consultant and engineers as well. And we'll be working in conjunction with town engineer and our highway department as well.
Okay. All right, good luck.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Brian?
Yes, thank you. And I see our highway surveyors here tonight. I know that the highway department participated in the last prong of Water Street. Can I just get an idea from either you or maybe the surveyors to what the role of the town of Milford is going to be in conjunction with the CDBG if we're successful with this grant?
Sure, we have worked on all our projects with the highway department. They oversee all the development and the road work. So they're basically the supervisors on the job.
You want to come up, Scott? And, you just refresh me a little bit, because I know work was done on Water Street a year or so ago.
Well, we did the intersection at 140, the little light project we had. The highway department did the sidewalk work, the handicap ramps, and some of the sidewalks down the street and up 140.
But then there was additional work to, down Water Street, wasn't there?
Yes, they did that on one of their grants, and we just basically overseed it and helped inspect it with Mike Santoro.
Okay. So are we going to be able to supplement this work at all to try to go beyond Lee Street?
This came up because it is in my large plan to have Water Street completed. It's a very big project. You know, if we had to do the whole thing, every sidewalk needs to be done, all the handicap ramps got to be done, the roads got to be redone, a lot of drainage repairs. My numbers are up over $1 million. So with my funding, there's no way I could get that done. So this is definitely going to be a big chunk of it taken away, which will help me in the long run as far as getting the other stuff done.
Okay.
Being able to afford it.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, no, obviously I think it's a worthwhile project. It's, you know, definitely one of the major roadways and within your target area.
And it will also tie in our last 4 projects, all 3 phases of the Prospect Heights and the Church Street, Bancroft Ave, and Draper Park.
Yeah, so it works together on a
Help
lot of
complete
different
the area.
levels. Yeah, yeah, so I think it's great. No, I support it, obviously. Just one thing I wanted to bring up on the community development strategy on page 3 and on other areas. One of the things that we've been doing, Melissa, is updating this, and as you've started here, we first looked to put the 42-acre Consigli property on Dilla Street under a conservation restriction, and you've noted that in a couple of different areas. But since then, we've gotten the memo from Larry Duncan, and he's really suggesting that we put all of the 200 acres, you know, the town-owned land for conservation restriction. So what I would ask is maybe all of the spots where you have considering the Consigli land, just kind of update that with the information from town planner. That it's not only just the Consigli land, but it's all of that
All
town
200.
forest and all of that very, very unique property. And other than that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and while Scott's here, the type of overseeing, you also grant permits for the digging, so to make sure they're
Yeah,
safe.
we're involved in the design also on a lot of different aspects of it. You know, especially when it has to do with the sidewalks and any road construction, so.
And his department also has a full-time inspector on the job who
Yes.
oversees all the road work.
Good, okay. I don't have any questions. You've laid this out in several meetings. Given that this is a hearing, what I'll do is go to the community, and if there's anybody in the community that came here specifically to talk about this topic, we'd entertain that discussion now. Not seeing anybody. We'll accept the motion.
Can I just
Oh,
add
certainly,
one thing?
certainly.
And Melissa, on page 3, page 3 on Milford Pond, make sure you include the 1.8 million that was appropriated by town meeting in October 2012.
Okay.
Okay? You want a motion, Bill?
Yes.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's been a motion to accept the Community Development Block Grant application as defined here this evening and in several meetings that we've had.
I'll second that, but I think, do we also need a motion to authorize the CDBG application?
We need a motion to accept the adopted CDS and then for the application.
Okay, so first one is the application.
I'll second that.
I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. And then the CDS strategy,
Yes.
or Community Development Strategy.
Motion, Mr.
Seconded.
I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Thank you, Melissa. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Scott.
Thanks, Melissa. How are you, Chief?
Hey, Bonnie. Hey, Chief.
Hello. Nobody wants to sit next to me. I don't know
No, I
why.
guess. So,
I don't think that's true.
let me, for the benefit of people in the audience and also people at home, try to provide some context and continuity. It was at a recent meeting, soon after the vote of the casino, that the board had talked about looking at the various studies that had been conducted on traffic specifically, and to see what information we might glean from those reports that were relatively low cost or where grant money might be helpful, and to identify the most important of those. I know that in that meeting, I happened to use two examples. One was a restriping of Dilla Street, as, and again, by way of example, and the other one was the suggestions made by the developer after the traffic study relating to East Main Street and specifically enforcement there. So I think the task was then to go off and pour through those, and Bonnie and I had the opportunity to also have a telephone conversation, pour through what existed for studies, and to see what might be the biggest benefit that we could reap from those studies that are already bought and paid for through the casino effort. So why don't I start with you, Bonnie?
So after we had this conversation, the three of us sat down with the reports that were prepared by Tetra Tech for Foxwoods and put together a list of all the recommendations that they had made. Some of the recommendations that they made addressed existing traffic issues, and some of the recommendations they made were aimed more towards if the casino came, the traffic issues that would occur as a result of that. So we went through, we've had 3 or 4 meetings where the three of us have sat down and gone through all of these and looked at them. And we came up with, so this memo that I sent to all of you is organized in order of ease of implementation. So the first list of 5 items are things that are very easily accomplished for very little cost and can be done by the highway department in the spring, and that is our recommendation. So
Could you walk us through those?
I sure can. So as you had used as your example, the restriping at Dilla Street and Purchase Street, on the Dilla Street side heading towards Purchase Street, restriping so that there is a longer left turn lane, and that will help with some of the stacking on Dilla Street. And then on the Purchase Street side heading towards Dilla Street, also restriping so that there is a designated right turn only lane there to help some of the stacking on Purchase Street.
And that's where we currently have what I would call a painted island, for lack of a better term,
Correct.
that looks to prohibit or dissuade drivers from queuing up on the left-hand side for a longer period of time. Tetra Tech's report indicated that if we were allowed to queue longer there, we would get an additional 100 feet of queue or some number.
That's on the Dilla side. On the
Yes.
Purchase Street side, when you come down off of Fountain, so you have the rush hour traffic, they take the left off of Fountain onto Purchase, and they're headed for Dilla.
Yes.
Several years ago, that was repainted to put an island in, to force people over into a single lane where people, as a matter of course, would queue up to the left if they were going straight towards South Street, and those taking a right would be able to take the right. We believe that it queues up in the morning to such a point that it's actually backed up onto Fountain Street. So our hope is to take a look at the width of the roadway to determine, can we put that lane back in so that people head towards South Street would queue up to the left. More cars go right than go straight.
You're right.
So let them continue to go when they're able to, even on a red light. So that's just to ease that piece of that traffic puzzle. The other one was, as you mentioned, on the Dilla Street side, to bring that left-hand turn lane, as Vonnie mentioned, back towards Sumner Street. So you're coming up Dilla towards Purchase to extend that left turn lane. There is a painted island there as well.
There is, yeah.
And people queue on the island.
They do.
So it's, we're simply putting in place what people already do as a matter of habit.
Okay.
The next recommendation, actually, and this came from one of the selectmen also, was in front of the 7-Eleven on Main Street, just before the intersection with Main Street and School Street, there are 2 parking spaces. If we remove those parking spaces, we will open up essentially a right turn through lane at that location. There's plenty of parking at the 7-Eleven, and there's plenty of parking on the other side of Main Street. So we don't feel that the loss of the parking spaces is going to be a big deal. So our recommendation here is actually to make a right turn and through lane and then a left turn only lane at that location. So that should also help on Main Street.
What was originally there? That was originally there before they did the Main Street project, so.
Okay.
The next one is at the intersection of School Street and Spruce Street. We'd like to box out that intersection because there tends to be cars coming up Spruce Street have a hard time getting through that intersection because people block the intersection. It's a very wide intersection, and it's an issue there during high traffic times when school's letting out, that type of thing.
So for the benefit of the non-traffic engineers, could you better describe or use different language for boxing out, what that means?
We'd basically paint the center of the intersection, and there would be signs that say, "Don't block the intersection."
Block the intersection, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The queuing there is related to the change in the island as you come School Street towards Pine and Main. And we took a look at that, and you can't add another lane. There used to be 2 lanes.
Right.
You can't do it. The island was reconfigured. The question came, can you take down the no turn on red? And that's problematic because people that are at that light have to look really in total reverse in order to see the traffic on Main Street, whether or not it's coming at them. So the probability of an accident was pretty high. So after we took a look at it, so we left that intersection alone and focused on the intersection where we get the bogging down, right in front of Charlie's.
The next recommendation was the same type of recommendation, boxing out the intersection at Route 16 and Hayward Street. Traffic traveling west on Route 16 and gets backed up because of people wanting to turn left onto Hayward Street during high traffic times. So if people do not block that intersection, hopefully it will improve the flow of traffic through that section.
So that people might take a left out of Hayward?
No, for people actually turning left into Hayward.
Turning left into, okay.
They can't because the traffic heading east is blocking the intersection.
Okay.
And then finally, there's on Route 16 at the Hannaford's entrance, right after the intersection with Route 16 and 109, there is a left turn only lane to Hannaford's there that can turn into what we've called a left-hand turn trap. People either get in that lane and get stuck in it, or people are in the right and they want to turn, and so it just adds to the traffic problem that already exists at 16 and 109.
Right, yeah.
So we're talking about restriping and dedicating? Okay.
Right, correct.
Okay.
So those are the 5 recommendations that can be easily accomplished.
Yeah, that's something we can do.
With the help of your department?
Yeah, it'll just be a matter of grinding off old lines and painting new lines.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to wait until spring. but
Sure.
The spring obviously means we'll have to go out, or someone will have to go out and
Mark it out.
Mark it out.
measure it up, see what we gotta do exactly.
Okay.
The second set of recommendations is, they will take a little bit more work and a little bit more study. The first one is the Route 16 and Route 140 intersection in front of the hospital. One of the recommendations that Tetra Tech made was to have a land taking on the eastbound side, to widen that intersection slightly so that you could have a left turn only lane on going westbound. So we need to look at that a little bit more. Scott has an engineer looking at that, developing a preliminary design so that we can put in an application for a grant from the state to do that work.
Application right now with Mass DOT to do that whole section of Main Street from Water Street to the Oakdale Town Line. And that includes that intersection, rebuilding that sidewalk, road rebuilding, drainage, and there's a part of the Godfrey Brook that crosses right there that is crumbling, so we added that to it also.
And
So that is in the design phase right now, actually, trying to get it, done as quick as possible. But
so to set reasonable expectations for the community based on our experience, and I know a lot of it's dependent on funding, but usually when we enter the design phase, how far is it until shovel in the ground? Usually.
Well, they've given me some estimates, and it's 2017, 2018.
Yeah, my experience is, I just wanted to set expectations for the
We
community.
also, I have other grants working for the Brooks, you may see that project first.
Pieces of it.
Right, so I have a FEMA hazard mitigation grant, which is also, that would be fast if that happens.
So
Just wait to hear.
if we're gonna improve that hospital intersection, we're looking at 5 to 8 years, at least based on our experience and what people are telling you.
Right.
Okay. Well, we don't start, then that clock doesn't start, right?
We'll run the 25% design phase right now. And once that's done, that moves it up the ladder, so.
Okay.
The second recommendation is intersection improvements at Route 16 and 109, which everyone knows is not a great intersection. This particular intersection was taken off the Route 16 improvement project by the state because of cost, not because they didn't believe that it didn't warrant to being done. So we are recommending updating the signal equipment, resurfacing all the approaches there, looking at the pedestrian access, especially across Prairie Street. There seems to be some issue at that intersection. So we're looking to hopefully submit this for funding through the transportation bond bill.
Okay.
That's something we've been talking about.
And just an observation, there isn't anything within that recommendation that looks to specifically improve the flow or improve that situation. I mean, are we having problems, for example, with the lights now at that intersection? Are they frequently broken down, or?
No, they function. It's just they're, as far as signalization, they're not of the same kind of that you see at the other intersections. So it's more difficult to cue them along with those timing-wise. And then the intersection itself, when I went through that design phase, the initial design phase, I think there were some changes that might have some impact on traffic. But that's a difficult intersection. It's a T intersection. Because you don't get much traffic out of Prairie Street.
Right.
So for all intents and purposes, it's a T intersection that sees a high volume of traffic.
All right.
I think basically back when we did the downtown project, they reprogrammed those lights to work a little differently. I think that's all it was.
Yeah. And frankly, there are a lot of people in town that would argue that, and maybe some of us that would argue that some of the work that the state did actually impeded some of the traffic. So, Scott, you plow them, you see it. So, for example, we talked about the Pine Street intersection.
Pine Street.
Pine Street intersection. that did nothing but hurt us and is actually queuing back towards Charlie's Market and blocking that intersection. So there's been some downside to some of that as well. But I guess it's part of what gets us the new signals and whatnot. So that's what we're recommending, that we bring the state back, help improve that intersection, and get the new lights for the benefit.
We're recommending that we get the state to fund the improvements, yes, we definitely are. That will require working with the state on that. That intersection also is another one where the traffic blocking the intersection and running the red lights is a real issue. So the redesign or reconfiguration of that intersection will have to take that into consideration.
Okay.
If that doesn't come soon, I think that we have to come back and take another look at where's we boxed out other intersections, to actually box that out. We do have the signs out, asking people not to block it.
I agree the paint's more effective, or could be a combination of, okay.
The third recommendation is one that we will continue to work on. I guess the conversations have happened before, but it's, Mass DOT controls the lights at the off-ramps from 495 on Route 109, and those lights are not in sync with the lights that are operated by Milford. So we will continue to talk to them about trying to coordinate those lights so that it flows better through there. That's something that I think has been discussed before. We're still working on that. So that's something that's kind of out of our control, but we will keep going to Mass DOT and asking them if they can work with us on that and fix it.
We own the light at Beaver Street, so that light is in sync with one of the two lights that the state owns. The two lights that the state owns are not in sync. So you'll get a green light if you're coming from Medway, and then you're going to immediately hit a red light, and the light just in front of you is green. So I've communicated with the state, and we're going to try again.
All right. Okay.
And then the fourth section of recommendations are ones that we actually did not completely agree with the Tetra Tech recommendations, potentially because they were anticipating more traffic from the casino. We're not sure, but there was actually this was a request from, I believe, the selectmen, a recommendation for signal timing changes on Route 16 at Jefferson Street and again at Water Street. This is related to the new signal timing due to the Route 16 project that just ended that the state did. And I think with the addition of the PED signal, especially at Water Street, it feels longer for people who are sitting at that intersection waiting, and that may be why this request came through. The chief took a look at it and feels that it would just make things worse on Route 16 if we did that.
Right now, Water Street, during the rush hours, you can move between 7 to 9 cars out of the queue on a green light. It seems like a long time because you have so many different facets to that intersection. You have, the vehicles from the post office side, you have the vehicles coming from the South Main Street side, and then you have Main Street and Water Street, and a number of turns as well. So people do have the sense that they're sitting there, and they are, because the other facets have to, work their way through the cycle as well. But the queue there, I see it every morning because I sit at the light at the post office. But other than that, I actually went down and just sat and counted cars. And on average, it was about 8, 9 cars that made it through the light on a green light without any difficulty. So that's pretty reasonable because that's what you actually see on the Congress Street side. And unless you have a number of vehicles taking a left-hand turn, and then it's actually less.
Okay.
The second recommendation also came from a request internally to install a crosswalk at South Bow Street to go to the bank. There is a cut in the sidewalk. There's a curb cut there right in front of the bank. But Scott and I looked at this, and in order to put a proper crosswalk in there, we'd have to put in the ADA compliant ramps, and it would be another bump out, it would be a pretty large cost item. It's a little more complicated than just putting a crosswalk across the street.
The state wouldn't do it there or in front of the police station. If you recall, just towards the bank side of the police station, there was a crosswalk there as well. And they took them out because they indicated that they did not go from a corner, an intersection corner, one corner to the other, so that someone with a disability would be able to traverse from one side to the next and then go, if they wanted to move in a different direction, east or west, along Route 16. So they, despite arguments with myself and Mike Santora, because I was in the meetings, they were not putting crosswalks there no matter what. The actual, what appears to be a ramp is actually the curbing is just depressed. One piece of curbing is depressed to ground level. And Scott discussed with us all the requirements that he would have to put in to be compliant with the ADA, to include, as he indicated, bump outs, which is a nightmare. Now you're taking that distance in front of the bank and cutting it in half and trying to swing those big plows through this. So that's why we recommended that the town not consider it.
And then the last item is in the Tetra Tech report, they did talk about speed advisory signs on East Main Street, and creating pull-off areas for the police department to monitor speeds. The chief put a black box out for how many days? 3-4 days?
We did a full week, so we
Okay,
get
full week.
Weekend traffic as well as weekday traffic. We monitored that area from December 12th through the 19th. The device monitored the speed of 65,538 vehicles and determined that the 85th percentile, is what traffic engineers look at, was 42 miles per hour. In fact, the 95th percentile, so 95% of the people are traveling at 45 or under. The speed limit in that area going eastbound is 40 miles per hour. Although it's not posted, it's 40 miles per hour as a matter of law. When you go just beyond that and into the town of Holliston, on the state roadway, they have it posted at 45 eastbound in an area where you see more homes. Coming westbound, the state has it posted at 40. That would carry through to the next speed sign, which isn't until you come up towards Route 109, and that speed's posted at 40. So with a 40 mile per hour speed limit, your 85th percentile is 42, and that's the measurement that is utilized in traffic engineering. There's just, you don't have a speed issue there. Whether Tetra Tech was recommended because they anticipated an increase in the number of vehicles in that area, I'm not sure, but those were the results that we found.
Okay. Yeah, the concern I had when I read the report is the Tetra Tech report seemed pretty clear that we have along East Main Street, in that East Main Street area, specifically in the Zane Ridge area, Zane Circle, what they called operational deficiencies. And in the meetings, I probed that. That is existing traffic volumes and speeds. I have the report. That's what called my attention to it and why I brought it up. And I got to tell you, I'm finding it, I don't know, maybe the irony is just going to strike me, but it seems like the only place we did independent traffic analysis when a whole lot of people went out and indicated, including town engineer and others, went out that these traffic reports have been completely vetted and had independent analysis both from consultants and from our own department heads. So there's two questions. One, is this the only piece of casino report information from Tetra Tech that we independently analyze? Because I asked that question too, if we were going to do peer review or are we going to go out and do traffic counts ourselves. And at the time I was told when we were out there selling the casino that the reports that were reviewed by department heads here were sufficient and that peer review by consultants was sufficient. Now the first thing we do before the reports get dusty is we go out and do independent analysis in an area. So I'm not questioning the results of your analysis. I just find it more than ironic that's the first thing we do after we go out to a lot of people in the community and say, these reports have been vetted and that these reports are accurate.
Well,
So-
to address that, in the Tetra Tech reports, they did traffic counts, and there was a concern raised by residents and by selectmen that speed would be an issue through that section. But there was no evidence in those reports that speed was an existing issue. In terms of increasing the flow through there, a lot of the residents were very concerned that people would be driving too fast through there, or that the residents of Zane Ridge would not be able to make a left-hand turn coming out of their driveway. And when you added in the additional traffic from the casino, that was a concern. It was my understanding that the Tetra Tech report was recommending the speed limit signs and the turnoff locations as a mitigation to what the casino traffic would add.
But that's not what the report says, Bonnie. Hold on, Chief. It says the existing traffic volumes and speeds make it difficult for people to exit their driveways and roads. So it says we have an existing operational issue, and it says, then it goes on further to make recommendations for pull-offs and enforcement and signage.
And if you go and ask the residents there, Bill, they'll tell you that is the case. You know, their belief, their perception is they have difficulty pulling out of their driveways because of, one, the volume of the traffic, and then a perception that the traffic is exceeding the speed limit. But some of that's not knowing what the speed limit is. Secondarily, the speed limit was going to drop if the casino was installed. So if the casino went in there, the speed limit in that area would have been 30 miles per hour. So that's an added component. And then as far as us going out doing an independent review, you know, with all due respect, the board asked us to go and take a look at these issues. And that's what we did. And one of them is a speed issue. If you want me to stand out there and guess whether or not my perception is better than someone else's, I would have been willing to do that. What I did is I took a device and put it out there and let it measure the traffic of almost 66,000 vehicles. Gave me the results.
I'm not doubting your results at all. I'm just saying that, you know, the reports, maybe it's our different interpretation of the English that's in the reports that says we have existing issues and that people can't get out of their driveways and roads.
And if, as I said, if you go down and as you did in the past, and you ask the residents today, is it difficult to pull out of your driveway? Is it difficult to pull out of Zane Circle, Whispering Pine? It is difficult. There's a high volume of traffic, and if their perception sitting at the end of their driveway is, I can't get out of here because the cars are coming too fast and there's too many of them, that's probably an accurate perception, because there is a lot of traffic there in the morning in particular, going eastbound. The question that came from me is, should we put up signs that say speed limit flashing for you're 40 miles an hour, you're going 42? I don't believe we should expend the funds to do that, not if you don't have an issue.
I was just reading the report, Chief.
And I'm simply bringing you information based on what we did so that you have a better sense of what's actually taking place there. I don't know if they did speed counts. I know that they did, you know, counts of traffic as far as turns and intersections and the rest.
You know, I'm not doubting your data. I'm just saying that, you know, prior to your data, these are the things we're going to do to mitigate and help those people get out of that intersection. And now I know what we're not doing, and so the question is, you know, that was an area that we deemed, and it may have been Brian's comment, that deemed it ground zero, that called it and said, there's no doubt you're in a ground zero with respect to that development. But there are real and legitimate issues in terms of people being able to get out of those roads, and the question is, what do we do? And it sounds like I know what we're not going to do, and it's not greater enforcement because the data is not suggesting that. It's not the suggestions and recommendations that were made by Tetra Tech in the casino proposal, but the question for town engineer, town surveyor, and police chief is, what can we do for those people? And, you know, to make sure that they're not lost to the greater community in terms of their ability to get out of, because I think there's a sense for some that's once you get on that side of 495, it's no longer Milford.
Well,
So
but Bill, we have the same issues on roadways across the community. I mean, if you live on a roadway that comes out onto Purchase Street, you know, particularly the upper end of Purchase Street, you're gonna sit and wait to get out. I mean, it's just, particularly in the morning and afternoon, you have a high level of traffic, it's difficult to get out. So, the only answer I have for you on, into that question is, put a light there, because it's the only way you're gonna stop the vehicles to cause the others to have the
Right,
opportunity.
but none of the members of the Board are traffic engineers, and so without that skill or expertise, and absent that recommendation from town engineer, highway surveyor, police chief, I don't know where to put a light or what to do.
And I wouldn't make that recommendation. So, I mean, because frankly, as I said, I could do it up at Shadowbrook. You know, traffic queues into that condominium complex because traffic's heavy on Purchase Street. So do we stick a light there? Do we stick a light? I can go down a whole list of places. I wouldn't recommend it. This box, we put our box at Zane, right at the intersection of Zane and East Main. That's where we measured the speed of the vehicles. I don't interpret that information. It's all computer generated. Speed limits are fed into the computer program, and it tells me, here are the speeds by hour, number of vehicles by hour, and then it breaks it down into the percentile.
Chief, the intent wasn't to, just so you understand, the intent wasn't to put you on the defensive. It was to try to leverage some of the data that existed and some of the data that an awful lot of people went out there and spoke to as gospel, and now we're finding out that that's the data that Tetra Tech provided was less than 100% accurate. I'm okay with that. The bump outs and the enforcement aren't going to provide improvement for the existing issues. I'm okay with that. I'll go to the other members. Dino, any comments or questions?
Yeah, it would be nice at some point. Well, I mean, the traffic, I come home that way at night, around 5 o'clock, 5:15 and all that, 16109. The backup is always coming from Holliston into Milford. Going the other way is no problem.
Correct.
I'd say probably a couple times a week at 5 o'clock, 5:15, 5:15, there's no problem. So I don't know what it is, if it's coincidence or whatever. But I think that, traffic in Milford is a problem at certain areas. I mean, I came down Central Street the other day, and I tell you, the cars speeding down that street, people can't get out. So, I mean, we've talked about these things, but there's problems in many, many areas. We have a traffic problem in Milford. We have a lot of people coming to town, and that's good. But in a lot of cases, whether it be South Main Street or Purchase Street or Highland Street, whatever the case may be, at different times, I mean,
Right.
I talked to Ronnie the other day, when I saw this, I thought that these recommendations, A through E, were good. Scotty, so those recommendations can be done, over 2 or 3 month period?
It can be done before summer.
Okay, now, that definitely entails some type of a cost. I mean, what would the cost be for that?
It's really not that significant.
Okay.
I mean, we will have to grind the lines out, it's $1.25 a foot. I mean, I gotta go measure them and really see, 'cause
Right.
there's a lot of cross lines and stuff like that. It could be a couple $1,000.
Okay. As far as the other ones, I mean, Representative Fernandez has asked us for items for the transportation bond bill. The only problem with that is, and I think the chairman mentioned that it takes a while to do that. I think this is something that, Varney, I think you mentioned on item number 2, 3, we need a little bit more information, research. I mean, I'd like to have, maybe in 6, Scotty, you're gonna work on the first item, that's great, okay? So that'll help out a little bit. But as far as the other ones, maybe we can schedule a meeting in, March or April, okay, when you have more information, maybe some diagrams, going over more information. And we apply for the bond bill. As far as the TIP grant, that's great. So getting cost estimates on all those, just to give us an idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to get that from the state right
Me-
now, actually.
Yeah, everything comes down to money, as we know, all right? So if we continue to look at this, we continue to study it and obtain recommendations, we try to apply for the bond bill. Just because we apply doesn't mean, there's millions and millions of dollars on there, so then the government decides what happens. So the probability, probably, we'll try, but it's not that great.
We can look at it in steps. If
Sure.
came down to that.
Yeah.
I could do some chapter 90 money all on that.
Right.
You know, we can do smaller steps.
So the other thing too is, if something is really important and the cost is not exorbitant, you know, like $1 million, whatever the case may be, then I think the board should look at that and, you know, maybe we do something. The other thing is, you know, we have a lot of, one of the reasons why we have a lot of traffic, you know, Milford's a very self-sustaining town, and we have a lot of companies, a lot of corporations, a lot of people coming to Milford to shop and all that. You know, they don't have a McDonald's in their town, but they come to McDonald's in our community, and all those things create traffic. You know, maybe with some of the new ideas, working with the IDC, maybe we can, like other communities have done, maybe we ask some of these large companies to see if they would provide some funding to the town to put into a line item account, so that, I mean, they're not gonna be able to provide $1 million, whatever the case may be, but maybe they can augment what the town could do, and also because, you know, everybody has to be a corporate neighbor. So my feeling is that I was happy with this report. You know, I appreciate the work that you've done. So let's get going on the first item, and on the other items, let's get some cost estimates, how much it would be, and then maybe have another presentation in a month or so, whenever you're ready, with some other ideas, maybe things that we haven't thought about. Maybe we'll have a better idea when we talk to our senator and representative, and then the idea in the IDC working, maybe looking at some other ideas, and maybe, you know, we did it about 20 years ago, and we did collect about $15,000, $20,000. Now, it's not a lot of money, but at that time, it was half the match that we needed to do some of these things. So maybe we can look at that. And, but I think this is something that is not going to go away. I mean, we've been hearing about traffic in Milford for a long time. I mean, it's gotten, you know, every house has 2 or 3 cars now, plus all the people shopping and all that. During the day, there's got to be, I mean, Milford's what, 29,000? During the day, it's got to be like 45, 50,000 cars in the town of Milford. So in a way, it's good. It's generating business, people coming to Milford, they like Milford, they're shopping, going to all the stores and the restaurants. But, and then on the other hand, it causes some issues with traffic. So I think it's something that we just can't, you know, put this on the shelf, forget about it. I think we have to continue looking at it. Let's do this, and then work on those other items, and maybe some other ideas. But, you know, Chief, I don't know, maybe like on Dilla Street, or maybe even in that area, whatever the area may be. Maybe if it's not a particular busy day and all that, or whatever the case may be, maybe an officer sometimes could maybe spend, if that would help, an hour, a couple hours, especially, you know, between 4 and 6, whatever. I mean, that's your judgment. We have a lot of requests for traffic speeding. I mean, we would need, you know, 65, 70 officers to take care of everything. But just, you know, we can think about it, but I think this is a good first step. And, you know, yeah, there is a traffic problem, and we just have to try to peck at it, as, you know, step by step. In the big things, we have to wait till the bond bill and the TIP grant. But there might be some other things we can do to, you know, like we, at one time, South Main Street. It was a winter day, what, maybe 6, 7 years ago. It was me, I think it was Mike Santori, yourself. We looked at the lines, we looked at how traffic was coming. We looked at the intersection, we cut down some trees, we put up some signs, 4-way stop sign, whatever the case may be. And then we decided on the strobe light that now, you know, when you go down South Main Street or go by Fruit Street, you can actually see that, and it's visible. And I think, as you've said, there have been less accidents. You know, at one time, the school buses, you know, that's in my neighborhood, the school buses really couldn't traverse that area because of the speeding and cars and all that. Now with the light and the strobe light, the buses are able to come in, pick up the kids, and it just seems a lot better as far as vision, the sights, and I think it's cut back on accidents tremendously. So those are the things that we always have to review on a continual basis. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Dean. Brian?
Thank you. Trying to remember what we're talking about here.
It's still traffic.
Okay. Just a couple of comments on some of these recommendations. 1A, that's something that we had looked at in the past, and I don't know if your records can find it. If not, I can get you. Mike Santora had written a memo that the measurement wasn't there to be able to do that in front of Purchase Street Market. The right lane turning down onto Dilla Street, it makes sense. And I remember he wrote, vehicles could do it, but when you have trucks and larger vehicles, you don't have enough width there to do it, so we were prohibited from doing that. If you need Mike's memo, I have it, but if
Okay,
not, you
that would be
should
great.
have it in the office, so, so I don't know if that's
I'll
doable
talk to
or
Mike,
not.
it's just very tight.
It's very tight,
But
it's very tight.
the predominant, our look at it, Brian, was the predominant number of vehicles traveling through there are standard-sized motor vehicles. So, you not do it because you may encounter a truck as opposed to moving traffic, most of the time. That's our approach.
I know. Well, take a look
Yeah,
at the
we will.
measurement, because I know what you're saying, 90% of the vehicles are single, are cars, but, the problem is when you have a box truck, and, the lane is there, they're gonna be entitled to do it, and all of a sudden, a vehicle in the left lane, they're gonna lose the whole side of their car. So, I know, and it makes sense, and I do it too. I go there and I'll squeeze to the right and, scoot down Dilla Street, but, that was what we learned when we looked at it before, so we
Okay.
have that information. 1B, Main Street and School Street, the parking spaces, it's a small item, but have we talked to the businesses in that area to see how they feel about losing 2 parking spaces?
We have not done that yet.
Okay, all right. I don't know that it's gonna be an issue, but we've just had, a couple of meetings here, and we're trying to help out Main Street and encourage businesses and all of that, and, if we wanna stay true to our word, and if we wanna stay focused, then we really need to get the input from the people who are there every day, whether or not they're gonna feel the loss of these 2 spots. My inclination is they won't, because I know the spots you're talking about, and they seem like odd stepchildren, but we got to solicit the input of the folks that are there every day. The boxing out, I think that's a great idea, because I know the signs you've put up, Chief, have been, a nice idea, do not block this intersection, or right near my office, don't block the driveway into 258 Main Street. Invariably, somebody does. And then, you have a whole situation. So maybe if we paint the roadways, that'll be helpful. Can you just go over 1E again? I got kind of lost on that one. What exactly are we doing there?
If you're coming 109 towards Milford.
109 towards Milford, okay.
Well, let's say Route 16 towards Milford. There's a left-hand lane to turn into Hannaford's after you go through the intersection.
Okay, on Route 16?
Yes, so
Okay.
you're on 16, you go through the intersection, there's a left-hand lane, left-hand turn lane.
Okay,
So what happens is a lot of the cars are shooting down that left lane because they can't, there's traffic in the right lane, and then they're merging over, which is backing all the traffic up. So what we're gonna do was, eliminate that lane, basically.
okay, all right. Is that the light, Scott, or beyond the light?
Beyond the lane.
Just beyond the light,
Beyond the light, okay.
right in
Into that.
front of the car rental place.
Yeah, okay.
Right there. There's a small left-hand turn lane. It only goes, queues probably 3 vehicles, 4 vehicles the most.
And if we eliminate it, you'll still have enough width that a car taking a left in Hannaford still will be able to get out of the way. So,
Okay.
that will.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's nice to be able to look at these things and, try to do what we can to increase the flow of traffic. The Route 16, Route 140, and I understand that's beyond our control, and I would tell you, based upon the Main Street project we just did, your timeframe is probably optimistic, because the other one started in 2002, and when did it finish? 2011, 2012, so...
I will say this, when we were out there with the state engineers, it was almost a year ago with Mike Santora and the state engineers, and they were very concerned about that intersection. When they saw the real small, narrow handicap ramps and narrow sidewalks, and the fact that an ambulance can't get through there in traffic, they were very concerned about it. So that helped us a lot.
Yeah, but this is
Still,
really,
right.
yeah, but this is really part of the larger project.
Right.
This is really part of, from the Hopedale line down to Water Street.
Well,
Which
it's
is
getting-
really the kind of the continuation of the
Getting
Main
the
Street.
impression from them that they've already been looking at that intersection.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
something may happen with them before we even get near that.
Yeah, no, I know. Now, what exactly, can you just run by me again, the land taking and all of that? Because I remember that was a major issue with some people during the casino, that, the casino people would have the audacity of suggesting that a land taking has to occur.
Well, in order to do the intersection correctly, there's gonna be land taking. I don't know exactly which corners, which sides. I haven't actually seen a plan done yet, but you
But
gotta have.
it's similar to any intersection, like we just did the Route 140 Water Street. There were land takings on all four corners.
Yeah, I think that was very minor though.
Very minor.
This would be a lot wider. We get a whole nother lane, each direction.
Okay.
But it'd be a lot more,
Mike Santora said the width of a sidewalk is what you need. I think he said you could build the other lane, but you're gonna need,
On
Right,
both
probably the
sides?
width all the way
On both
around.
sides or one side?
I think it's every side.
yeah.
Okay. So the width of a sidewalk gives you the extra lane on both sides.
Right, so you're actually gonna be putting a sidewalk back also, so.
Okay, okay.
I was gonna go back in,
Yes.
yeah.
So that's
yeah.
the,
But we don't know where the right-of-way is. The right-of-way may in
Right.
fact
Right.
be into some of the property line already.
Except without the actual engineered plan, I can't really say, but there's definitely.
That's okay.
Right.
Well, I mean, obviously that's a major, I view it as commercial intersection, that our largest employer is right there, and it's obviously a high-traffic area with vehicles, emergency and otherwise. So, there's no question that whatever has to be done there, really needs to be done to smooth the flow of traffic. And then, let's see, on 2B, that's, just updating the signal equipment, what you talked about there, access to Prairie Street.
And we're hoping to get a cost estimate from the state on that, since that was originally part of the Route 16 project.
Right, right.
I've asked them to break out that cost for
Right.
us.
Yeah, and that was then, like you said, they dropped that at the last minute because of cost. Would we be able to do that work independent of the state because it's on Route 16?
Yes, we own it.
We can do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We own, we could do some of the surface work, but we'd need their permission to do some beyond that, right? Headed up towards 99.
I'm not exactly really
Yeah.
sure exactly where, but state highway ends right.
Okay, but it makes a lot of sense to pursue the transportation bond bill. Yeah, other than that, I think you did a great job looking at all of these things. I agree with your recommendations at number 4. I understand, I think it may be a matter of interpretation of that Tetra Tech proposal, which was, part of the commercial proposal, but my understanding was that, that was the comment that they had got from citizens in that area, but, it's almost contradictory to think that, the vehicles are speeding there on East Main Street, because if in fact there's that much traffic, it's almost self-regulating. I mean, there's so many vehicles there, they can only go so fast. So, the traffic volume may be high, and there's no question it's tough to get out of roads, but, and you've done this in other locations when you've actually timed it out and see what the speed zones are. The speeding isn't so much of the issue as opposed to
Correct.
volume and other things.
Yeah, we had the black boxes out. We have 2 of them. We have them out all the time. People call and complain about speeding. We put it in their neighborhood. Dina mentioned about officers have directed patrols every day in the neighborhoods that they patrol, based upon those complaints and then what we find from doing
There's no
the
question about it.
evaluation. So,
There's no question about it.
but you put them there for a while and then you have to move them because, as we all know,
Another request.
I get complaints every single day.
Yeah, and we have, there's complaints that I've gotten since I've been on the board, and I'm sure years prior to that, traffic is a big issue, so, I think a lot of these recommendations are common sense. We can make them happen, And I want to thank all of you for looking at this in a very thorough and comprehensive fashion. I think you did a nice job putting this together.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me go back to Dean. real quick.
Thanks, Bill. I think, John Fernandez and Senator Moore are on top of this. We just received a letter today, and they've written to Secretary Davy, Mass Department of Transportation, about Green Street and Cape Road 140. And so they're looking at that to get information. They're asking that the highway officials travel to the intersection, fully assess any potential issues with traffic flow, and offer corrective recommendations. So this is something that, unfortunately happened last week. There was another bad accident 4 or 5 months ago. There have been other accidents, and also, I think the chief will be writing to you for further information and all that.
They received it all today.
Yeah, so-
They received the accidents going back to 2010, the actual accident reports, as well as a breakdown showing them what direction the vehicles were traveling in, whether or not the stop sign was an issue in the crash, whether people were injured or the one fatality. And I also provided them with information whether the accident occurred during daylight hours or during darkness. So they have a spreadsheet that breaks it down, and then behind the spreadsheet, they have a copy of every accident report. I sent that to Representative Fernandez today and to the town administrator, which he'll be sending to you folks.
Yes,
as well.
that's, thanks, it's very proactive. Last week, I asked the administrator to, send them an email to you and Varney, and just looking at that, any recommendations, short-term and long-term. So, of course, this year would definitely address the long-term concerns. So, there are other issues, other areas too, that are bad too, there's no question.
And again, that's a state highway. The state owns that intersection, so we don't have the ability to go there as we did at South Main Street and put up larger stop signs or put stop lines with the word stop on the street. A number of proactive things that you can do to highlight that the stop sign is there. And then if that doesn't work, the next step is the flashing lights. I frankly don't see them putting an intersection light there, given the close proximity to the light at the hospital at Route 140 and 16. Keep in mind, it took us 10 years to get the light at, 10 years I worked on it. I know you folks worked on it before that, at Water Street and 140, simply because the state owns it.
Okay, thank you,
That's
Dean.
all.
Is that it? Yeah, so the two areas I'd like to see is one that I didn't bring up, but just to reinforce what I said, I want to see, and I'll look to Bonnie. Bonnie, I'm going to assume you're project managing these things, and keep us informed and updated as information changes or as progress is made.
Absolutely.
Second piece, I'd like to go back and see what can be done when we talk about Adams Street, Appleton Street, Wildwood Drive, Dogwood Drive, Whispering Pine, Pine Needle, Zane Ridge, in that area. There's more than a perception that people can't get out of their driveways. So let's see what we can do. The other thing I'd like to ask is, and we haven't talked about it at all, but when you come out of Beach Street in front of Sacred Heart on Route 16, there's a no turn on red sign there, where there's a great deal of visibility there and line of sight. And I'm just wondering if you could look at that. Don't expect you to have information tonight on that intersection, but if you could get back to us with information on that. I'm just not sure if that's necessary, given the line of sight there. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer, but there are a great many people that are going to get ticketed at that intersection, taking a right, coming out of Beach onto 16 because of that, because they can see and are disregarding the no turn on red. That's all I have. I think, just to be clear, I don't have any problem with the additional data that was provided. I actually asked for that rather than peer review, so the additional data gives us information, but it doesn't change the existing conditions that we have and for those neighbors. And if there's something we can do, we ought to keep looking at it and keep working at it to see if there's something more we can do there. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Bonnie, we still have you for the town hall and windows?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we have this
Yeah,
one.
Yes, we have them.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already got this one.
So the town hall window restoration project has begun. Our contractor has come and taken out 4 test windows. Their intention is to take those windows back to their shop, figure out what they need for balances, what they need for glass, and then order all the materials for all the rest of the windows so that there won't be a long delay on replacing the other windows. So you may have noticed that there are 4 windows in Town Hall that are boarded up. And as part of these, doing the windows, we have to pick paint colors. The paint colors were not defined in the specifications that our historical consultant pulled together. So I've had some discussions with several people. I've talked to Paul Holtz at the state at Mass Historical. Also spoke to Max Farrow, who was our historical consultant. I spoke to Ralph Mastriani, who was the architect that did the renovations in the town hall. And what all of them have told me is the color scheme that was chosen for the interior of this building was not based on historical colors. The color scheme was kind of picked and made to match throughout the different offices, but the colors are not historic. What Max had said to me was you can pick any color you want for the restoration of the windows. The windows on the basement level are only going to be scraped and repainted. They're not being restored in any way. The windows on the first floor will be removed, restored, repainted, and returned. And then the windows in the Great Hall will also be removed, repainted, restored, and returned. The windows on the basement level are currently a mauve color, like that door over there. The windows on the first floor are a reddish purpley color, and the windows in the Great Hall are a dark brown. So all 3 floors have different colored windows. What I have proposed in the memo that I prepared for you is that at least for the basement level and the first floor offices, that we use the same color to repaint all the windows. It'll make it easier for the facility staff. It'll be one color to keep track of. And I've come up with 2 color choices that I think would work in any of the spaces that we're talking about. And then we have, the town has actually hired a resident engineer to oversee the window project who has a master's degree in historical restoration. And so I consulted with her about the color for the windows in the Great Hall. And we found a color palette that matches the existing brown windows. But her recommendation, and I agree with it, is to not try to match the exact same brown color, but to go a shade lighter. So if we tried to match the existing brown color, and even if we had the exact same color, you could tell it was painted at different times. So we're recommending going a little bit lighter. And then lastly, in the back stairwells, the color scheme is that dark red purpley color. The flooring is that color, and then all the window frames and windows are that color, and the whites are, the walls are an off-white. So I recommend in the back hallways keeping that color. It seems to work well. It matches the floors, and it kind of opens up the hallways a little bit too because of the contrast between the white and the red. So I have brought some samples.
Got samples here, sure.
Um,
Nice.
My wife's going to be very impressed. I was selecting colors for the windows.
Very nice.
This is, these 2 colors, it's hard to tell the difference between the 2, but this one is a little more greeny gray. This one is more white. And this is what I would propose. These are the colors of all the offices between the first floor and the basement level. So the offices are one of these colors. So I would propose going with basically a off-white kind of color. In the basement level especially, it'll brighten things up a little bit. It does get a little dreary down here sometimes.
No, not in this building, does it?
It's a little cave-like in my office sometimes. And then this is the red for the back stairwell. It matches the existing red that's out there now. It's Benjamin Moore Beaujolais. And then this would be the brown that I would recommend, and that Mary also recommends to go with the brown windows, which I don't have a dark brown to compare that to.
Are you asking us to look at one or the other, or are you gonna use both of these intermittently?
No, I would pick,
Oh.
I would pick one.
Okay.
And.
Because they're so
they're
different.
Yeah, they are, they're very different.
Yeah.
That one's definitely got more green in it.
As long as I don't have to spell Beaujolais, I'm okay.
So my request to you is, I know this building is extremely important to a lot of people in town, and that a lot of thought has gone into the restoration of this building, so.
I don't see the difference, Vonnie. I don't know, I'm sorry. I think they're fine. I don't know. I can see the difference on the bottom, but that's not the colors, right?
Yeah, no, and the numbers are different.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, Benjamin Moore is providing all the paint for, and these are all interior colors. For the exterior of the building, the exterior of the windows right now is black. It's, and we're going to keep that color. We'll use the same Benjamin Moore black. And Benjamin Moore is also providing the primer for the windows as well.
So where do you need I just want to be clear, where do you need the decision, whether the darker or the lighter white?
I just need an okay from the board that it's all right to change the color of the window panes. And if you have any strong feelings about this one or this one, then I'm willing
So you're gonna
to
use
listen.
one or the other?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to pick one for the windows down here and the windows on the first
Well,
floor.
which one do you like?
I like, well, see, now I have to put it back up against these. This one, I think, has a little more contrast to this. Otherwise, they're pretty close to the same.
Well, that's the one I like.
Oh, well, there we go. So,
Very good,
Sure, no, good.
very good.
okay.
What about you, Mr. Chairman? You okay with that color?
I know to take the recommendation of a woman when
That's
it
right.
comes to colors. Because I walk in a room, I don't know what the drapes look like, I don't know what the cushions look like, and I don't know what the walls look
Well,
like.
that's what I said to Rick. I'm going to ask
No, no.
Jean and Liz for their recommendations. But
You haven't, you know, if the folks at home could appreciate the differences in the shades, you haven't proposed too radical a color scheme that, as was done a few years ago, not that many years
Yes, I
ago on
heard-
the
I
outside.
heard
So-
that
So
story.
that's why folks are a little sensitive to the nature of the building, so we appreciate you taking that, and we do take it seriously. So you can see from what we've done up there and the town hall floor restoration, the ceiling, and the fire damage that we've had, we take great pride in the building, and I know the people that work here want to work in a bright and cheery environment, just as well as, you know, anybody else that works anywhere, right?
You want a motion?
Yeah,
I'd
please.
make a motion to accept Vonnie's recommendations on the colors.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll second that. Again, just to be clear, we're talking about interior only.
Right.
The exterior is all gonna be the black?
It's going to be the black that it
Okay,
is now.
which is what's there now,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
I'll make
So-
that unanimous. Okay. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thanks, Vaughn.
Next, we have Kyle Romano, Executive Director of Blair House. Okay. Good evening.
Jim, how are you?
We're about 20 minutes beyond. Apologize for that. So let me, I guess, introduce the topic. In light of the fact that there are 2 cemetery streets in Milford, the proposal has come in recommendation from the Blair House that there be a change, and that specifically one of the cemetery streets be named Lighthouse Way. For the benefit, before you get into what drew you here, there has been a lot of correspondence that I want to make sure that folks are aware of, that's existed between the town administrator, police chief, fire chief, building commissioner, and others. And most of it's, there's also town council that says that, that nothing precludes the Board of Selectmen having the right to, has the right to make that change, and there's also a right of appeal of that decision within 30 days should people affected by that name change have a concern or issue. So he's pointing out the legality. But more importantly, for the police chief, fire chief, and others, there's the piece of it that not a lot of people, unless you're in public safety, would think about, and that's the confusion that might arise on a 911 call when which cemetery street requires the emergency service. And for anybody that might live there, I'm sure they appreciate the fact that we may not lose 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes in response, going to the wrong address by chance. So the police chief, fire chief, building commissioner, and our building inspector and town engineer have all indicated that they, and town planner have all indicated that they're in support of this. So with that, I wanted to introduce that to say there's no objection from the town, but I do want to give you the opportunity to present what.
I think Kyle Romano would be the best spokesperson, and Ms. Slaughter is very concerned about this, and let Kyle explain it to us.
Well, really the major issue being the safety and the response time. As many people know in that area, the skilled nursing center has been in operations now for, many, many, many years. The senior daycare center, as well as a home care agency that have been kind of in that campus. With the development of the new assisted living, you'll have kind of all 5 aspects of senior care being offered at that campus. And of course, my own personal opinion of building an assisted living on Cemetery Street is not entirely too conducive to the clientele that you're looking for. On top of the fact being that of there being
That's
2.
a nice way to put that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, there being 2 streets, an opportunity to rename one.
Sure.
I'd rather rename the one that takes care of the seniors versus the one that doesn't, being that the more appropriate avenue to take.
Okay. Let me go to the members, see if they have any concerns or issues or comments.
Sure, Mr. Chair, thank you. Kyle, first of all, I want to thank you and your father, Frank, for the facility that you have at that location. You have done so much for Milford. You get involved in causes, fundraising efforts and all that. And I think what you've done in that section, rehabbing everything and what you're going to be having, when will that be completed?
Hopefully by Thanksgiving, Jim?
We're looking, it's a 12 to 14 month
Right.
project.
And I think that'll enhance the whole area.
It really will.
And I know the neighbors, you work well with the neighbors, you do everything you can. And I just think with the day program and everything else, it's a wonderful facility for the town of Milford. And I think this makes sense. And I'm glad we're doing it now. How'd you pick that name?
There's a couple, I know initially we were thinking Blair House Way to try to match it in with the campus, but in all honesty, my father has a personal love for nautical themes, specifically lighthouses, sailboats, and everything that goes along with the ocean and Maine specifically. But lighthouses have always been a thing for him, and they certainly do kind of speak to the company in the way we present.
Okay. But, no, thanks for everything, and good luck. And I think this is something that everybody agrees with, so I think it should be done as soon as possible.
Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, Dean. Brian?
Well, let me just say I agree with some of your proposal.
Okay.
It does make sense to change the name, and, for public safety reasons and also for other reasons as well, so I don't have any problem with that. I do have a problem with the proposal, the Lighthouse Way. When I look at that section of town, that's one of the oldest sections of town. And you look at the surrounding streets, you have Claflin, Grove, Whitney, all named after, families that had founding roles in this town. This is not Falmouth, this is not Maine, there's no lighthouse connection, there's no nautical connection, but there is a historical connection, to that section of town with the town of Milford. So, I would approve your recommendation to rename the street. What I would like to do is to solicit an opinion from our historical commission as to what name would be appropriate for that particular location, given the history of Milford. I mean, I can think off the top of my head of a family and a woman who contributed a great deal to the town of Milford and its development, and that's Sina Hella. And, you know, I think naming something after a person like her would be a tremendous, tremendous honor. It would have historical significance and a great deal of meaning in the town of Milford. So I you know, appreciate your proposal coming forward. It makes a great deal of sense, but to me, I'm more historically oriented to the town of Milford, and when I look at those surrounding roads and streets, I just don't think that this fits the location of the town.
Could I-
So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Certainly open to the idea, certainly not against the idea. I mean, it's my personal opinion. Anything that is light years away from cemetery would be all I truly care about. I also think it's important. I'm certainly not trying to rename or take away from an already existing historical name. So you are correct in that certain street names in that area do represent pivotal people in the history of the town. Certainly Cemetery Street is not one of them. So it would be for me to rename a street that doesn't have any historical significance. Certainly trying to give that street historical significance, I'm open to, and any names that you might want to generate from the historical committee, I certainly would be open to listen and to read. But I think it's important to recognize that the street has, and for many years now, not held any historical significance in its current name.
And I hope you recognize that the decision to name this street is with us, not with you.
Sure.
So we appreciate the fact that Blair House is here. I think it's a tremendous facility. My father was there for several weeks, got excellent care. So, you know, I think that's fine. But, you know, the fact of the matter is, if you're asking, you know, to me to look at this and to make a decision, when I look at that area of town, and again, I see, you know, the names that fit within that section of town, I think that, you know, something ought to be put there that's a little bit more appropriate to the town of Milford. So, you know, I don't know what my colleagues would want to do, but, you know, I would be looking for recommendations from our historical commission as to potential names for the road.
How long do you think that would take, Brian?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I can't imagine,
Would it be
to
us
be honest with
approaching
you.
that, or would it be you? Would you ask us to approach the...
Well, I would think our town administrator could, but boy, I can tell you, you know, Lynn Lovell and Ann LaMontagne and you know, a lot of the other historical commission members, I don't think it's gonna take them long to come up with something that's really appropriate to that area. I mean, this is right down there, no pun intended, right down their alley.
And to include them in something like this would probably be very much... you know,
Well, I mean, that's why we have them, you know, I mean, you know, they're the caretakers of the town's history, and, I mean, this is our role today to try to preserve the heritage and the history of the town of Milford, and that's my take on it.
Okay. Dean, any thoughts?
No, I wouldn't be opposed to getting some comments from the historical commission.
All right. Ultimately, as Brian said, it's, you know, the decision of the board what the street gets named, so, and I don't have any particular thoughts. I'm happy with going to the historical commission as well. And I would say that in addition to the town administrator, I'd reach out to them to see what the various options are.
You can send the letters out. We'll send the letters out.
Okay.
We'll ascertain from them, sure.
All right. Thank you for bringing this forward, because I don't know that that a lot of people are aware of the fact. And, you know, the other thing that I first thought of when I saw this, are there any others out there that may cause confusion in terms of public safety and response?
With duplication.
Where there's duplication? Because I didn't hear anybody say we're fixing the only one in town. So if you could look into it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
If you want to put our names, we'll approve it tonight, okay? All right. Okay.
Dino Way.
Dino, Billy, and
Great
Brian.
idea.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, Carol,
Thank you.
take care.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Next, we have Ernest Pettinari, representing a client for boundary line agreement. Good evening.
Hi, Ernie.
Oh,
Got a plan to show you.
that's nice.
I am Ernie Pettinari. I'm a lawyer here in Milford. I think many of you may know my practice is involved in real estate, and we get involved with some title situations from time to time. We're currently involved in a piece of land that is across the street from our office presently. That property is the location where, from right to left as you're looking at it, the Milford Speed Shop used to be, and then the Morcone family owned the properties in the middle. At the outset, I think it's important that I tell you a couple of things. And the first is that when these pieces of property were originally laid out, there was no plan drawn. And when they were originally laid out, they utilized natural boundaries to set the boundary lines. So what they did back in the middle of the 19th century is they started conveying properties on Main Street, and they conveyed the property from Main Street up to the point where the southerly boundary of the Cedar Swamp Pond was. Now, I brought with me a picture that I was lucky enough to find showing the 1876 configuration of where the Cedar Swamp Pond was.
Is this plan to scale?
This plan is not to scale, but I think it shows you something very important, and that is, this is where the pond used to be, and this is where the lots are. So sometime between 1876 and 1931, the town of Milford was involved in relocating Cedar Swamp Pond so that this pond was taken off of this area of the property, down in the intersection of Pond Street where my office is, and Beach Street, which B-E-A-C-H is spelled that way, because that's where the water used to be, and they relocated the pond. What happened was they never drew a plan, and all those deeds continue to exist out there with references to the southerly line of the pond. Now, in cases like this that involve private landowners, what we typically would do is we would typically have the landowners agree to set the boundary line somewhere by convention or occupation or otherwise. The problem with that in this instance is the town of Milford has a requirement that in order to do something like a boundary line agreement, we have to get a town meeting vote. So this really is intended to have the same effect as if two private property owners signed a boundary line agreement establishing a boundary line at a place which to them makes sense. And now I'm going to go back over here. I'll take this with me. The boundary line on these properties has been set, we believe, for nearly 100 years in the location that's shown by this yellow line. The boundary line of the Pheno Field athletic field is set on this fence line in orange. The property line shown here in yellow has been the defining line for these lots at least since 1958 for the town of Milford. The town of Milford adopted their assessor maps in 1958, and they used this line as their property line. Again, it's never been officially referenced in the Registry of Deeds. There's never been a plan created. We're looking tonight to ask your support and to ask you to present this article to the town meeting so that the boundary line between these two lots, one of which is the Pheno Field lot, and the other one which is this lot which fronts on Main Street, to be recognized as being where it's been since 1958. The 57,031 plus or minus square feet is the total number of acres that have been described by the town of Milford as being within these lots since '58. So we think this basically makes perfect sense. Only because it requires town meeting vote do we have to solicit your help and come before you tonight and ask for your assistance in doing this. And basically, that's the presentation that we are making. It really is a housekeeping item. It's simply to establish the boundary line where it has been by convention and occupation for well over 100 years. The one thing I didn't tell you is this fence is the latest iteration of the fence, but anecdotally, we've been told that there has been a fence in this location for more than 80 years. This fence, we know, has not been changed in its location at least since '58. That's basically what we're here to talk about and to explain the process that the town meeting has to utilize. and to ask for your assistance. It's a relatively simple venture. If the town meeting votes favorably and the town signs the boundary line agreement, we record that plan, and then that becomes the boundary line in perpetuity hereafter. So, any questions? That's
That's my question.
okay.
Yeah, the only question I had, and I had asked Jerry, and he said to see you about it, was that the question of how this land was purchased in some 3 years ago, right?
This land was purchased by the present owners 3 years ago.
How is it that it did not come up during that purchase?
Well, again, because what was purchased from the predecessors in title was what the predecessors in title got from their predecessors in title, and that is all of the same premises conveyed by deed. And the recognition of what that boundary line had never been pinned down by a survey, but now because this property could become the subject of development, the survey becomes necessary.
Never surveyed.
Correct.
Never surveyed.
So the land transferred at the last sale without survey of the land or any verification of where the boundary lines were?
And at all the intermediate sales before that, yes.
Wow.
Well,
But again, since
just
50
without survey, not without verification, because there's a
Correct.
written deed.
Correct.
So that's the difference. There's a written deed, which is,
But at least with the sales that I'm accustomed to, somebody goes out there and surveys the land, and especially when you're talking about that kind of money, one would think. But, okay, you answered my question. Dean?
I was impressed by that picture. I have a picture at home on Milford Pond that I can give to you so we can
That's got to go back.
attach
where I got
that,
I
okay?
guess you could guess where I got that.
All right.
Yeah.
the good representative allowed you.
No.
Oh.
Family member of my wife.
Oh, okay.
No, I think with the literature from having spoken to Jerry, I think town meeting is the way to go in that.
It has to be. As I say, if we were all private citizens, we would have put the agreement on record months ago.
Makes sense.
But because the town meeting requires that there be a town meeting vote for anything affecting the property, this is the case. And by the way, just so we're on the same wavelength on all of this, we looked originally for a deed for Pheno Field. We can't find one. I worked with Priscilla for a couple of days on that, and we couldn't find a deed that establishes the boundary lines of Pheno Field any more definitively than the boundary lines of these lots. Because again, they were bounded in the other direction by the pond.
Okay.
Wow.
Any thoughts, Brian?
No, it's very interesting. What a nice follow-up to the one we just had before. Now we've got the history of Pond Street, Beach Street.
There you go.
It just really segues nicely. Just to be clear, Ernie, the boundary that you're drawing is going to be on the highlight line.
On the yellow highlight.
You've just put the orange line there just to show the outfield fence of
Correct.
Pheno. But you're not creating a boundary to the orange line such that there's owner unknown in between the orange and the highlight.
No, if you're familiar at all with what's on the southerly side of the Pheno Field fence, it's kind of a wasteland. It's
Right.
a little bit of a slope. It's a little bit of a hill.
Right.
But the honest answer to your question is that it's never been established by occupation as really coming into either of the two chains of title. The chain of title into the property that fronts on Main Street clearly by occupation goes to the fence line, and the Pheno Field one clearly by occupation goes to their fence line. I mean, I think that the consensus will be that actually, the agreement would say, everything to the north of the yellow line would simply become officially the town's, and everything to the south of the
Right.
yellow line would officially belong to the.
And that's clear.
Correct.
And that's clear, yeah. So, I mean, I think maybe when we go forward on the town meeting, we'll just have one highlighted line if it gets to that point, to show where the boundary's gonna be.
Okay. So is there a motion to bring
Motion,
this
Mr.
forward?
Chairman.
Seconded.
I'd also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Thank you, Ernie.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Make sure nothing happens to that, now I know. Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is Town Administrator Report. Rick?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Patrick, on Wednesday, released his budget proposal for fiscal year 2015. His budget level funds unrestricted general government aid. It does call for an increase of approximately $565,000 in Chapter 70 funding. As you well know, these numbers do not necessarily reflect a finalized maximum ceiling, as both the House and the Senate will be filing competing budgets. I do want to also inform the board that we are now seeing the net metering credits reflected on our National Grid invoices for the net metering agreements that we entered into with Northbridge Solar. In the next few months, I hope to be able to quantify the exact dollar amount in savings for the town, and will report that to the board. They do project first-year savings of about $104,000. In addition, I want to just recommend, talk to you about the transportation bond bill. It was mentioned, obviously, in prior conversation with Scott, Vonnie, and the chief, but in your informational correspondence packet, there is a letter from State Representative Fernandez indicating he will be sponsoring state transportation requests as amendments into the transportation bond bill. Two other projects that were not mentioned previously that will be included, Veterans Memorial Drive, Phase 1, Beach Street to Central Street, and also the Dilla Street Bridge improvements. So those are in addition to what were mentioned earlier by Scott, Vonnie, and the chief. And that's all I have, sir.
Okay. While I have you for Town Administrator report, the board was given analysis of affordability.
Yes.
And you also provided a press release as it related to that. I don't want to get into that now because it's off agenda, but I do want to say I appreciate the thoroughness in which the financial team reviewed the finances and the costs associated with that. And what I'd like to do is put it on the next agenda so that we can discuss it, which would be just before the meeting. But I think it's clear. I think the analysis that you provides for clear information and guidance going forward. And if anybody has any questions, they can see you about that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now we'll go to old business. Town Administrator's capital project update, police roof, town hall.
Yes, starting with the town hall, as you know, we did re-shingle to the town hall roof. The final numbers are the total appropriation was $184,383.42. Total expenditures were $117,804.39. We do have a balance of approximately $66,579. Regarding the police roof, which is also complete, the total appropriation there was $385,000. Total expenditures were $357,496, and leaving a balance of approximately $27,503. So those two projects are complete, and I just wanted to report that to the board. I also did include in your packet a capital projects updated 5-year plan, 10-year plan. We have gone through, eliminated some of those projects that have been completed. So if the board has any questions or wants me to look into anything further, please let me know.
Yeah, we can go to the board members. They've had an opportunity to review this at least over the weekend, whereas that other report was a little new, to give them a little more time. The only comment I had, Rick, is no placeholders for IT, general IT.
Okay.
I know it's a big part of what you're doing,
Yeah.
what you're working on, so look to put in some of that.
We will.
That's what I thought. I
in
didn't want to
February
surprise the
meeting-
board members either,
Yeah.
and I know you may not have pinned that down,
We have not yet.
but folks within town government, media representatives, or anybody else that were to look at this document should know that depending on how the board moves forward on IT, there's likely to be some IT costs in there that aren't identified today.
That is
So
correct.
It's a work in progress.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Next, under old business, well, why don't I go over this?
Yep.
Are there any inputs, comments, or things that Rick should look towards?
No, I think it's pretty comprehensive. We had seen something similar to that, and then I think with the IT. But like everything else, if there's always something that we need to add, then we can always add
Or
to
modify it,
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Brian?
Not really. It's, sort of the list that we've been carrying for a number of years. I think that it might be time to take a realistic visit at the town hall exterior painting, because this would now be the third go-around where we'd put together some numbers which, based upon the two projects we had, are clearly excessive, but that's certainly nothing on the horizon. And the other items fairly repetitive from the other previous reports that we had seen. Now, we're not including the major projects, the Godfrey Brook and the Louisa Lake, carrying those as separate items?
I'm carrying, yes, I can
Okay.
get those numbers for you if you'd like,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, all right. That's fine on that item.
All right. Then, special town meeting warrant, you don't need anything on this, right?
No, it's just
Provided
there
it for
for the
information.
board's informational,
Okay.
as to the 4 articles that will be presented.
All right. Anything under old business from the members, Dean?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, I'd like to backtrack a little bit, because you brought up the analysis of affordability that was provided to us regarding the Woodland School. And, I did have a chance to look through it. It's a major financial commitment, something that this town has never seen. And, I think it merits a bit more discussion and review than what's been done so far. So what I would like to request is actually a special meeting next Monday night, and have the financial team before us, representatives of the FinCom, the building committee. I mean, all of the different players in this particular project, I think really need to come together and develop a clear sense for us as to the affordability of this particular project going forward. I'd also like to maybe, and I don't know if time permits it, which in and of itself is a troublesome issue, where we have February 10th town meeting scheduled, and again, this financial process is still a work in progress. But I'd like to have the opportunity for another set of eyes to look at this, and I'm thinking of maybe our audit team, just to cross-check it, what are we missing? What are we not thinking about? Going forward on this project, I really think that we have to be extra cautious in terms of the finances, and like you said, I appreciate the work that was done, that was to put this together. I would have hoped that it would have been done otherwise, but we're at where we're at right now. But I really think that we need to get a fuller understanding, and the only thing that I can think of, given the short time that we have, is have a meeting devoted to it.
Okay, so I guess what I want to do is make sure Rick has some clear direction. Is there anything you think that report's missing that we either would warrant outside audit, or, because it certainly, Rick, I don't want to speak for you, but who did you pull together in order to put this information together?
A great deal of work was done by the town accountant, financial analyst, treasurer, town council. They were the main components. Finance committee has been involved. I've had conversations with Mark Shane.
Okay.
Obviously, the building committee itself, Aldo Jakey, the chairman. Those are the main players, so to speak.
All right.
That have been involved to date.
So I guess I want to give Rick a little more direction. One, I don't have any issue with calling a special meeting. It's large enough in scope to do that. I think we could do that pretty readily. I don't know, I feel compelled to bring in external resources. I'm not sure that it warrants it. I think we have the same financial team that we've had steering the town all the way through, and so that's just my opinion. Dean, any thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, no, there's no problem with having another meeting on Monday. Matter of fact, there's nothing wrong with more information for everyone to look at. I spoke to Zach last week, spoke to him again. I think the work that he's done is really remarkable with Paul and Bedanza, town administrator. Just quickly, I think on the basis that going forward with the stabilization, using stabilization over a 10-year period, the withdrawal, and at the same time putting money, at least $500,000 into stabilization every year. This is the worst-case scenario, the information that we have. We also, besides taking care of the school, we take care of the youth center, we take care of Godfrey Brook. We can put $1 million towards the parks for the fields. We all do this within Proposition 2.5. We also, at the same time, will have free cash. We will also can put money away every year like we have to lower the tax rate for the residents, because I think, taxes are most important, and we should always look at lowering the tax rate along with everything else. So, to me, after last week and today and looking at the information, and there is a lot of information, and I think a meeting, can only help for more information with town meeting members and all that. I think they've looked at everything, and, right now, it looks pretty good. We can take care of the school, we can take care of all those other projects, we put money away for stabilization, we put money into stabilization as that goes down, and I believe after 10 years, the amount will be absorbed by the operating budget. And at the same time, the tax levy, there'll be excess tax levy, and our goal of applying monies to the tax rate will still be upheld. So I think the information is, they have to be commended. We've been talking about this for a while, probably planning this the past 3 years, but I welcome the opportunity to have more information for them to come before us. People on TV can see it, they can watch it, town meeting members, and, but I think we have a pretty good document. Going over the next 10 years, we have been conservative, but I think for the people who sit on this board 5 or 6 years down the road, the budgets will be a little bit tight. There will be flexibility, but a little bit tight. We have to continue to watch the budget and all the items that we do on a yearly basis. So, but I think the information is good, and I look forward to having the information given in different ways. We'll be able to ask some questions. I think that would be good.
Okay, so why don't we, I'll accept the motion to post a meeting for Monday night,
Motion.
7 o'clock. Let's invite the FinCom, the financial team, and the building committee, I guess executive team from the building committee.
Sure.
And, the other thing is it'd probably be worthwhile, I don't know how you feel about it, because I don't want to direct the building committee, but the building committee got the information out publicly. Because Brian's point is a good one. There's been a lot of work done and analysis done. Let's, ask the building committee, get that information out to the town meeting members. So the work's done. You ought to put a bow on it and get that out there, and then let's have the meeting Monday night as well.
Okay.
So with that, is there a motion?
Yeah, motion.
Okay. Brian, there's motion for a meeting next Monday night with the members that you represented.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. I'll vote in favor, and that's unanimous. Okay. New business, fire department acceptance of a gift. There is, well, let's see, have we skipped anything? I'm sorry. No?
Nope, we're good.
The acceptance of hearing loop system at the Ruth Ann Bleakney Senior Center in the amount of $2,399.62, and that's provided the donor is Harold S. and Marcia A. Rhodes.
Motion, and we should also send a letter to
Send a
Mr.
letter.
Rhodes. Mrs.
Very
Rhodes.
kind gift.
Mr. Chairman, if we could go
moving on
back
both
to,
gifts,
no, if we could go back to item, first one is a gift to the fire department. in
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
$100
Motion,
from
Mr.
from
Chairman.
Laternos.
Okay, the Laterno's provided for
separate gifts.
$100 to the fire department.
I'll second that
Correct.
motion.
Yes.
Okay. And next, the Harold S. and Marcia A. Rhodes gift to the senior center for $2,399.62.
Seconded.
Also vote in favor.
There's a request to fill a position on the personnel board also, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, I was gonna come
Okay,
back to
I'm
that.
sorry.
No, that's okay, that's okay. Sometimes I get out of order. Yeah, there's a request here, and I'm gonna ask that, the request from the personnel board to make an appointment to the personnel board, to fill the term remaining for Teresa Persico, who recently resigned last month. Rick, what I'd like to do is look into the talent bank to see if there's...
I did check, there are no other applicants
Okay.
in the talent bank, and this would be
Do we
the
have an
alternate
applicant?
member moving up.
Okay,
So
all right.
this is a gentleman
Got
who's
it.
already serving as an alternate
All
member.
right, I just
would
wanted to
be-
make sure we weren't bypassing
No,
anybody.
I did check,
who was-
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman, as per your request.
Thank you.
Chairman,
So-
I'll make a motion for Mr. Waki Asante.
Okay.
Seconded.
I'd also vote in favor. That's unanimous. All right. You know, while we're in the mood for appointments, we've had a couple of openings for a while for the IDC, and we have 2 applications in front of us. I asked that Rick get these out. One is Peter Scandone, 57 Whitewood Road, and the other one is Robert Mitchell.
Motion, Mr.
Craft
Chairman.
Road.
Motion.
All right, there's a motion.
What about Steve Treadle?
Actually, Mr. Treadle indicated that he would withdraw his request at this time.
Look for a future opening? Okay.
Yes.
And these are the ones we've had the longest
That was last
by a
minute.
day, in one case.
Steve, give it to the younger guys, for now.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Well, we're not limited.
No, you're not.
You're not limited.
Nope.
What's that?
Not limited. No, the bylaw says we can have up to 11 members on it.
I thought there's
We
2.
have,
I
let's
thought
see,
there
right
were
now,
2
there's only 2 openings, I believe.
Right, that's what I thought we were limited.
5, 6, 7.
I had checked with Rick
9.
before the meeting.
Yeah, we have 9 right now, and then 2 would be 11.
You have up to 11?
Yes.
Oh,
correct,
okay.
Correct,
All right.
I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So we have Peter Scandone and Robert Mitchell?
Yeah.
And you've made a
Yes.
motion? We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. And, you know, for the benefit, not everybody may be familiar with Peter and Rob, but they were certainly involved in the casino discussions. And, you know, this is one of the things that the board had talked about, keeping people engaged and looking forward to see what we want the community to look like. And this is just moving forward on that. And I appreciate the applications by, Rob's not here tonight, but Peter, good to see you again. And Steve and Jose. But thank you. Okay. Next, under correspondence, we have the town planner regarding Consigli property and conservation restriction. Is there any questions regarding making that 200 acres in the vicinity of the Consigli property part of the, at least show that the board is interested in that, as we spoke before, and also a suggestion, town planner's suggestion, that we pull together a group of people, town administrator, council, town planner, conservation chair, and Upper Charles Chair, Trail Committee Chair, to look at ways in which to make this happen?
No, I think it's very much worthwhile, and I think we should protect that land, and the
Yeah,
sooner we
exactly.
do it, so I think that committee would be a good way to start.
So can we have a motion on this particular recommendation from the
Motion.
town planner?
Motion.
That we,
Seconded.
okay, I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Good job,
Chairman,
Larry.
and also, I want to thank Larry for all the work that he's done as far as that and all the other stuff that he does on a weekly basis, monthly basis. He's, you know, I think our town planner is very knowledgeable, very technical expertise, and I just think that whenever we ask him for anything, he provides a very valuable report.
Okay.
And in that particular case, very important information.
All right, thank you, Dean. And the next item we have is a letter from Tom O'Laughlin, Police Chief, to Rich Villani, Town Administrator, with regard to compliance checks in businesses in Milford who are engaged in secondhand dealers, secondhand dealers. Appears to be an FYI, unless a member wants to bring something up about it. Nothing actionable in it.
No.
Okay. Next, we have annual license establishment activity report, and that's specifically the liquor licenses that the board controls and issues to the businesses in town. Any comments or thoughts? I'll go to Dean first.
No, in reviewing it, Bill, a lot of it is what we discussed before. I think this is from September, October to December, and I don't think there's anything that really sticks out. I think, once again, the chief is doing a superb job working with the establishments, and I think they realize that we're very serious as well, and I think it's something that, you know, it shows in this report, but we always have to look at it and receive, you know, periodic reports, so
Right,
I didn't
this is
see,
a-
I didn't see anything that was glaring.
This is the annual, for the benefit of people at home, we receive quarterlies as well, so this isn't a surprise to us. Brian?
Nothing remarkable since the last report, which ran to November 17th.
Okay. Any of the members have other items of correspondence that they'd like to bring up at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to bring up one of our own, Jennifer Walsh, outstanding young lady, has done so much for disabled children and adults. She was recently given a North America Award for an Olympics coach and teacher of the year, and I believe she'll be at the State of the Union tomorrow night, so
She is.
I think at some point, we should probably have Jennifer in. I mean, she's made the Special Olympics something in the state that is recognized by everyone, the Kennedys and all the other groups, and she's truly done a great job for all the families in the area and in Milford who have special needs children.
Yeah, I would agree, and Rick and I have worked on this to find a point in Mrs. Walsh's busy schedule to bring her in. She was to be here tonight, except that she had a conflict with her travel to the State of the Union.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think for a lot of us that are involved and see Jen out, I think we know of her commitment to the community and especially those with special needs. And, you know, it was great to see her recognized outside. We always have known what a special person she is, but it's great to see other people from outside the community see that as well. So I agree with all your comments and bringing her in, and if we could have pulled it off tonight, but
She's got pressing engagements.
she's going to go to the State of the Union, so that should be
I can't believe she
interesting.
would give up this for
I
that.
know, I know.
Jeez.
Imagine that.
And also, Mr. Chairman, it would be nice, along with her family, maybe some of the staff at Milford High School, but maybe some of the kids, like we've had the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts here tonight. It would be nice to have some of the kids to come in to see that, because I just think you know, what's being done is great, and I think would be a nice touch.
Yeah, we work with the friends to see if their friends could help that happen. Okay. Anything else, Brian?
No, I don't.
Okay. That concludes the public session of our meeting this evening. We do have an executive session. That executive session is for the purpose of meeting with the clerical union, or meeting with town council regarding clerical union memorandum of an agreement. So I'll take a motion to go into
Motion,
executive
Mr.
session.
Chairman.
Seconded.
I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Now I'll go to roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote in favor. That's unanimous.